Donald Whitehead, Executive Director, National Coalition for the Homeless. He brings more than 20 years of experience in serving and advocating for persons experiencing homelessness to NCH, including 5 years experiencing homelessness himself. Inertia, the tendency for bodies at rest to remain at rest. Mm-hmm. And momentum, the tendency for bodies in motion to remain in motion. If we take somebody that has just been sitting 20 hours a day in a tent on a sidewalk, which has got to be the most boring those days have to seem like weeks long.
Right.
But they're used to doing very little to nothing. So now we move them into a place, they're inert. They're sitting there, and it seems to me that the caseworkers are so important because it's really hard sometimes to self-start from zero. But if you've got someone there that's coming by saying, okay, look, let's get a haircut, let's get some decent clothes, let's talk about what's your consequential knowledge? What is it you know how to do? What did you do before? Did you work on cars? Did you have good people skills? To really get them to start putting small goals in front of themselves and move. I've seen people that I've worked with that when you got them clean, you got them haircuts, you got women where they got any kind of modest wardrobe, anything where they sat taller, they stood tall, they wanted to do the next thing.
Absolutely.
But it just takes so little that I think they could really move. And drug treatment, the same thing. All of a sudden they've got a place to live. They start saying, all right, I need to ask more of myself, but they need that little bit of help. How much follow-up and how much casework do these people get once they're in a stable home?
Well, so permanent supportive housing is not just the housing, it's housing and services. So everything you just described is what that case manager is trying to do. But they're giving the person the agency to make that decision. And it isn't, you have to do this tomorrow. You can get there over a period of time. You can gradually get there. And I believe that we should also do that in the shelter system. And that's what I did in the shelter I operated in Orlando. So, I had job fairs. I had recreational activities. I had motivational segments that happened at the shelter. So the housing first mentality doesn't have to be giving someone a house right then. It could also be looking to see what that next option is while they're in a shelter situation. So giving them case management, giving them all kinds of things that build on their own skills, the asset building that you talked about. And, that's actually what happened to me. So I, have been an actor in my life. I've done theater. I've done a few movies. I've done a bunch of commercials prior to me becoming homeless. And when I talked to my case manager and told them about that, they created a job for me that allowed me to utilize all those skills. And it was so impactful that I never went back to acting or comedy or the stuff that I used to do. I stayed involved in the homeless movement. And, it's incredibly tough to do that for everybody, but everybody has that something. They were an artist, they were a welder, they were a singer, they worked in a factory. And if you do that, what you described, if you tap into whatever that skill set is, and that's what case managers are doing every day. They're working with people within those permanent supportive housing units, and they're also providing people that have already done that.
Reshma Saujani. She is the first Indian American woman to run for Congress, worked with the House and Senate to develop a, quote, Marshall Plan for moms in response to the crisis mothers have endured because of COVID. What got you interested in all of this?
Well, I'm the daughter of refugees. My parents came to this country in 1973. They were expelled by the dictator Idi Amin. They were 2 of 1,000 refugees that got status to come to this country because they were engineers. My father, though, had to work as a machinist in a plant. My mother sold cosmetics. And my dad, when I was very little, he would read me these little Reader's Digest books about Dr. King and Mahatma Gandhi And there was something about hearing those stories when I was little about these change makers, these warriors, these people who were put on the earth to do something that stuck with me. And so I've always wanted to fight for people like my parents, vulnerable, poor, people who, others had counted out. And as we know, Dr. Phil, a lot of those are in our society and across the world are women and girls. I've always been moved by the plight of women and girls. It's always been the people that I've wanted to fight for.
Do you think that's changing in America at least, or do you think there's still that big gender difference in the way they're treated and the way they see themselves?
I thought it was changing. And then the pandemic hit, and women are in crisis. Dr. Phil, the CDC reported that the second subgroup besides young people that have the highest levels of anxiety and depression are moms. Moms don't break, but there's something about the past 2 years in the pandemic. There's something about our public policies. There's something about our structure that we have in our society that is really pushing mothers to the limit. And, one of the things I've really been reflecting on, is the fact that we just think that in our country or in America in some ways that motherhood, parenthood is a personal choice. And so you don't get anything from your government, your society, your neighbor, your friends, your workplace. Right. But you don't have a functioning society, that has a declining birth rate. Family values, being at family is such a core part of what it means to be an American. And I think we've lost a little bit of that.
I'm way older than you. So I've grown up through some different generations. And in the 50s, we were not a double income society to the degree we are now. I think now the statistics are high 70s, maybe even low 80s double income society, whereas in the 50s, it was maybe half that. So now we've got both parents working outside the home, bringing in income that the family relies on. And previously, families adjusted to living on one income, and the second income was what you fell back on if something happened.
Right.
Somebody got sick or a job was lost or unexpected things came up. Then that second partner would get a job and bridge the gap. But now we're a largely double income society, and 100% of those two incomes are being absorbed. So there's no cushion there. But women are a vital part of the family's economic lifeline. That's really showing the pay gap, right? Because they're out there in the workplace, but working for less.
That's right. That's right. Women are not a nice to have in the workforce. They're a must have. But the problem is, Dr. Phil, we built workplaces on the fact that we've treated women as a nice to have. So, we have work days that are 9 to 5 and school days that are 8 to 3. Because back in, like you said, in the 50s, he was at work and she was at home and she could pick up the kids. Now it doesn't work that way. And so all of society is based on an outdated model that no longer exists. And who's picking up the slack? Women. And the pandemic really exposed this. So when schools shut down, a lot of families in America treat schools, I know my parents did, as daycare centers.
Of course.
And so when schools shut down and you still had to work, you had no system of care. And, when we created this thing where you had to log in your kid at Zoom, I have a kindergartner. I can't be hey, Sean, log yourself on. See you later. No, I got to be right there with him while I'm trying to keep my job.
Dr. Ingrid Haynes-Traylor served 2 decades in P-12 public education as a teacher and administrator, and now serves as the director of the National Literacy Institute. She also teaches bachelor's, master's, and doctoral level literacy courses and has published books and numerous journal articles on literacy instruction. Now, she actively researches best practices in literacy instruction for at-risk students and conducts literacy training and workshops across the nation to build instructional capacity in teachers who teach our most fragile learners. My mother would tell me, people would say, why is he reading that? Because I'd go to the library and check out 5 or 6 books, and it would be these crazy little books like Left Half Back or something about drag racing or whatever. And she always said, I don't care what he's reading as long as he's reading. They would be these kind of fantasy kind of books or whatever, but I would read 4 or 5 of them a day. It was just exercising the reading. It wasn't War and Peace, but it was reading. And it got to where I would read like a page at a time instead of a word at a time. And then when it came time to read something that mattered, then it was really easy. But even comic books, if kids will read anything, it seems to me that it's good that they're reading.
So listen, Doc, I compare, reading or learning to read. Like I played basketball and I was pretty good. In order to be good, you got to practice and you got to do it over and over again and practice the right way. So when we do our sessions or trainings at the National Literacy Institute, I'm not selling the program. I tell them all the time, Doc, what can I buy for our school? I don't have anything. All I had to do is give them knowledge on how to be an insightful, knowledgeable teacher on how to teach literacy. But to me, it's just like practicing to be, in a sport, basketball or baseball. You got to do it over and over again to get good. You got to work that muscle, right? And you got to build that schema. But a lot of times, again, these kids are not reading. And then a lot of our teachers are not trained to teach reading, and especially if that child is coming with a reading deficit or some type of area of concern, and so area of need. Let me make you laugh, Dr. Phil. We're getting ready to do this thing called book swap. And book swap is where the children bring a book from home, and then we give them a new book. Just the other day, I had someone say, do you think, Doc, that's going to work? How many kids do you think are going to be able to bring a book from home? And I had a lot of people saying they don't think that it's going to work. I couldn't understand. We did it before COVID, and I've done it before, but I'd had a lot of people say, do you actually believe they're going to bring a book from home? Do you think they have books from home? That threw me off for a second. But it's where the kids come and we have authors that speak about their books and stuff like that, and then they give the child their book. And I, for the first time, I heard quite a few educators tell me they can't wait to see how I'm going to pull this off because they can't imagine children bringing books from home, that they don't have books at home.
Wow.
So, yeah, I'd
be interested to see how that goes, if they're actually reading in the home.
But they said they didn't have books. So I'm such a person, like, again, I play sports, I like to win. Because I heard that, I'm like, I can't wait to do it though. But that they want to see. They don't think the kids will have books at home to come and swap with me. Basically what they said, we don't want you to be embarrassed in front of authors because the kids may not bring books to get a new book. Dr. Phil, we did a conference. Let me just say this other piece. I'm having a good conversation with you. This year was my 20th year doing the National Literacy Institute. And Ron Clark was my speaker. So a lot of times he and I do a lot of stuff together. I told him this time I wasn't going to let him outdance me. So I had practice on my moves. So I didn't let, I think I did him this time. I outdanced him. But we had over 3 to 5, I think it might have been close to 5,000 teachers at this conference. And when I tell you the spirits were high, I mean, it was a lot of great presentations, but the morale, the feedback that we got, people were like, they had never attended a conference like ours. We try to bring a little entertainment as well as good presenters that know how to focus on, helping children read and read on grade level. That's what we literacy. It was really good though. This is our 20th year. We're just trying to reach as many teachers and provide them with support to really make an impact in the lives of children. Yeah, that's my focus.
You make great food, you're a great character, and you sure have a great story. And it's no accident that you are the most famous person in the food business, the food industry, the restaurant business in the entire country and have been for a long time. Because you fit the Triple D formula. It works for them, it works for you. So there you go. What goes around comes around, right?
I've never heard anybody ever spin that back on me. I'm just telling you, only you. You're the one that sees, you have that 30,000 foot view on things. So of course you would turn that right back on me. But no, I can see what you're saying with it. And it's so ironic that you would pick up on it and go, but no. being raised with good parents and in a great community and staying grounded and staying. And I remember when you and I first met, you said, "How did you end up this way?" I told you that story about my mom and dad and what great people. I was just up in that little town, Ferndale. And so the museum wrote me and said, could you write the forward for our community cookbook? We're going to make a cookbook with all the history of Ferndale. And I said, yeah. And I said, how many books are you going to sell? I said, we're going to sell 100. And I said, that's all you can sell? And they said, no, we're going to sell 1,000, but we just don't have any money. I said, how much are the cookbooks? They said, $10 a piece. I said, all right, I'll buy all the cookbooks. $10,000. I'll pay for them. I'll write the forward and I'll pay for the $10,000. And I said, but you have to sell the cookbooks for $40 a piece. And they said, great. So we just sold all the cookbooks, made $40,000 for the museum, which is their annual budget. Yeah. And people and everybody's like, and it's not where I come from. Where I come from, our community rallies like that. And I tell people this all the time. We can make a bigger difference in this world. You just have to you just got to move your SKU maybe 10% more. Maybe it's not financial, maybe it's participation, maybe it's advocacy, maybe it's just being vocal, but who knows what it is. But if we just moved it 10%, I think we could fix a lot of these issues, these social issues that we have in our country, and could make this a lot better place. But we're not going to do it bitching about it. We're going to have to really activate and participate one way or another, some form, shape or form, do something. But we are empowered. We're the greatest country in the world. We brought ourselves from nothing a few different times and saved and turned righted this ship. I really hope we get this straight. And you're such a patriot and such a leader of the country. I look forward to seeing how you continue to help us see the vision on this, because it's ours to lose, folks.
Well, it is. And you're a perfect example of, like you say, you don't have to have a bunch of money to give $1 million to a cause. If what you have to give is your time, what you have to give, maybe a little bit of this or a little bit of that. Robin and I work in the foster care system and the court-appointed special advocates that help kids in the system when they have to go into court and stuff. And she got involved and raised $100 million in volunteer services for CASA in a year, just by people saying, hey, I don't have a lot of money, but I've got some time. Find a way. Everybody is complaining and there's so much divisiveness. If you took just a little bit of that energy, like you say, and said, what can I do? And you don't have to be organized. Hell, you drive by and see your truck out there and walk up and say, hey, can I serve? Give me a spoon, I'll put some beans on a plate. Just anything. We just need to start.
Take a picture and make positive affirmations on social media and talk about something good people are doing in this world versus getting all negative and down. We got enough negative energy floating around out there. Let's counterbalance it with positive energy. You know how many good things that we have going on in our community that doesn't make the front page of the paper because sensationalism doesn't, the sensationalism sells. So I'm with you, and please keep in mind that I'm always good. We play inside of our fields of things that we do, but I'm a huge fan of kids and family, and children really are the future. So you keep in mind when you guys do another fundraiser, how I can lend my support on that, and either send some items or send a visit to Triple D or something, and let me know how I can lean in on your project as well. I'd love to. I try to make sure that that's something I'm always involved in.